and welcome to this week's edition of Northwest Newsweek. I am your host, Avery McCrae, and let's take you through the top stories from this past week in our great region. We begin with the provincial election, where the winds of change blew through the Thunder Bay area Thursday as two new MPPs were elected to Queen's Park. Starting things off in Thunder Bay Atikokan, progressive conservative candidate Kevin Holland defeated NDP incumbent Judith Monteith-Farrell, becoming the first PC member for that riding since the mid-1980s. Corey Nordstrom reports.
Kevin Holland was the big winner in Thunder Bay Atikokan in his first attempt at provincial politics. The longtime mayor of Connie earned over 9,600 votes, soaring to a 900-vote victory over incumbent Judith Monteith-Farrell of the NDP. Liberal Rob Barrett came third with nearly 6,500 votes. This marks the first time since the late Mickey Hennessy won in 1985 that a progressive conservative managed to beat the Liberals and the NDP in that area.
We've made history here tonight, so that's pretty exciting for me. I'm humbled by the trust that the people in Thunder Bay Atikokan have given me to represent them at Queen's Park. I'm excited for the opportunities that we have, and I'm thrilled to be able to go down and do the work that needs to be done for Thunder Bay Atikokan.
On the opposite end of the emotional spectrum was Monteith-Farrell.
I'm disappointed for myself personally, but very much more for the people in our region.
The single-term MPP garnered 3,000 fewer votes than in 2018. She believes many voters were turned off by the federal alignment of the NDP and Liberals, which helped switch votes to the PCs. Monteith-Farrell says her 4 years at Queen's Park went by quickly, and she pointed to some of her highlights as a part of the official opposition.
Really appreciated the work that I did and moving forward on looking for addressing the doctor shortage, the Northern Health Travel Grant, and just generally speaking for Thunder Bay Atikokan. You know, every time I spoke with the perspective of the people of this region.
As for Barrett, his political debut didn't go as planned, and the Liberal Party only gained a single seat province-wide despite virtually tying for second place in the popular vote. While maintaining that it was a positive experience, Barrett hopes to speak with Holland to share some of what he heard on the campaign trail.
The people of Thunder Bay Atikokan have spoken, and I hope that Mr. Holland is successful and able to lead our riding in a way that really helps us grow and heal and prosper.
As for Holland, he says he's planning to lean on his lengthy experience in municipal politics to help him get ready for his new role.
I like to describe it that I've been 31 years in training for a job that I interviewed for 10 months, and it's paid off.
Corey Nordstrom, TBT News.
There's also a new color for the riding in Thunder Bay's Superior North. After 27 years of Liberal red under retired MPP Michael Gravel, the NDP's Lise Vaugeois came out on top this time, defeating two Thunder Bay city councillors who are running for the PCs and the Liberals. Jonathan Wilson has that story.
After losing by just 800 votes to Michael Gravel in 2018, this time around it was an 800-vote victory for NDP candidate Lise Vaugeois in Thunder Bay Superior North. It was a close race throughout the night, but Vaugeois managed to hold the lead, finishing with over 8,400 votes. PC candidate Peng Yu came in a solid second place, followed by his city council colleague Shelby Chung for the Liberals. For Vaugeois, it was a sweet victory after coming so close 4 years ago.
I feel very excited, and I think by tomorrow it'll start to sink in and I'll have to figure out what this actually means. Certainly changes my life, but it's something I've wanted to do for a long time, and I feel like I bring skills that I hope will be helpful to the people in our region.
Peng Yu was keeping up his positive attitude despite falling short in his predictions of victory. Had he won, he would have been the first PC candidate to win in that area since 1967.
I feel disappointed, and through lots of hard work, and really want to make a change. But however, like I said all along, personality that can be changed. I'm a positive guy, moving forward, and congratulate everyone. That's why I went to other camp to congratulate Lise.
And he wasn't the only defeated candidate to stop by Vaugeois' election night party, as Chung also came by to congratulate the newest member of the NDP caucus. This was the first provincial election run for the two-term city councillor. She's not ruling out another attempt in the future, as Chung's spirits were raised by her supporters during the campaign.
You know, we didn't get enough votes to get across the post this time, and you know, that's I just want to hug them because I couldn't have done any of this without their support, and it's been so lovely just getting out into the communities, talking to people. It's been a tough 2 years, and we have a lot of issues, and this is a very heavy riding. I wish Lise all the best.
Bourgeois admits her time at Queen's Park will start out with many challenges, as NDP leader Andrea Horwath is stepping down, and she'll be attempting to sway a Ford government with a solid majority.
And make good things happen for our region. That's what we need to do. That's why you've all come together and I've kind of lifted me up to do this work. Thank you so much. Let's keep it going.
Jonathan Wilson, TBT News.
Well, Kevin Holland will not be alone in the PC caucus here in the Northwest, as voters in Kenora Rainy River once again put their faith in incumbent Greg Rickford after an unusual campaign this year, as there were no public debates in that riding. Adam Riley was in Kenora for election night and has more.
We walked in the snow, we walked in the rain, and why? One reason, to re-elect Greg Rickford, the member of the Provincial Parliament of Kenora Rainy River.
The riding of Kenora Rainy River will remain blue for another 4 years, as Progressive Conservative Greg Rickford took a very early lead Thursday evening and didn't look back until he was declared the winner. He says now, with a clear mandate both locally and provincially, it's time to continue on with what he started in 2018.
They've asked for a commitment to ensure that we continue to invest, making unprecedented investments in healthcare, in education, to support small businesses, growth in the resource sector, forestry and mining, and make sure that there's a brighter, better day for everybody in northwestern Ontario.
As of Friday afternoon, 105 of the riding's 108 polls had reported in, with a total of 15,530 votes cast. 9,231 of those votes were directed towards Rickford, giving him 59.4% of the vote, with a 6,000 vote lead on his NDP challenger, Joanne Formanek-Gustafson from Fort Frances, who took just shy of 3,100 votes. Third place went to Anthony Leek of the Liberals, followed by Catherine Keevening of the Greens. Leek feels having a late start to his campaign didn't have that much of an impact, but he says it was definitely a different election this year, especially with a low voter turnout.
It was very much one of those things where we kind of knew what was going to happen, but at the same time, with the situation with the flooding and everything, we weren't quite sure what that would mean, and we found that out. But overall, it was a good campaign. It was a little bit different than without the debates and all that, but at the same time, you gotta do it.
Leek says the message from voters was clear and looks forward to rebuilding the Liberal Riding Association in the region going forward. Meanwhile, for Rickford, who served the last 4 years in several different cabinet roles, says he's enjoyed every minute of it, but won't speculate on whether or not the next 4 years will see him return to those roles.
I'll simply say that I think that it's a very special responsibility, one that I've had federally and provincially, and at every turn have tried to leverage for the benefit of the people here in Kenora and Kenora Rainy River in the 2 chapters of my political career.
Adam Riley, TBT News.
Meanwhile, the preliminary results in Kiiwetinoong indicate Saul Mamakwa will be re-elected as an MPP by a comfortable margin. The race in that riding was fraught with polling issues and long delays, with only 45 of 51 polls reporting as of Friday afternoon. The incumbent NDP member says he's happy to return to Queen's Park as a voice for the North. Mamakwa won more than 55% of the total votes counted as of Friday, putting him 1,000 votes ahead of second-place candidate Dwight Monk of the PC party, while Liberal Manuela Micheletzi was a distant third. Mamakwa says he'll continue focusing on basic human rights such as access to clean water and health care, as well as housing, nuclear waste, and climate change.
We worked very hard in the campaign, but of course we worked very hard as well in the last 4 years, and it's an honor and a privilege to be able to represent Kiiwetinoong for the next 4 years. You know, we need a better Ontario, a better Canada, and I think we can do that by working together.
While there were polling delays in other parts of the province as well, Mamakwa notes Northern First Nations in his riding have faced significant problems that need to be addressed. The predictions of another majority government for Doug Ford seem to have a big impact on voter turnout, both provincially and here in our region. Election analysts had predicted a very low turnout based largely on the fact that the outcome was expected well in advance. Across Ontario, the numbers of eligible voters who cast their ballot dropped from nearly 57% in 2018 down to a record low of 43% this time around. The Thunder Bay area held to that trend, as in Thunder Bay Superior North, voter turnout dropped 11 percentage points from nearly 53.8% to 42.8%. The decline was even greater in Thunder Bay Atikokan, where the turnout fell from 54.7% to 42.8%. Meanwhile, in Kenora, Rainy River, and Kewetinoong, while some polls still haven't been counted as of Friday, the drop in voter turnout was even more pronounced. After the break, we will bring you the latest on the flooding issues that have encompassed much of the Northwest. A teenager from Sioux Lookout has now been identified as the victim of Thunder Bay's 5th homicide of the year. Thunder Bay police were called to Shipley Street shortly before 3 o'clock Wednesday morning after a 19-year-old man, now identified as Tyrese Belmore, was rushed to hospital by private citizens. He had serious injuries and was pronounced dead soon after. Investigators secured the crime scene along with a second residence on Brock Street. Police haven't explained the connection between the two sites. A postmortem has been completed, but police have yet to announce a cause of death. Well, much of Ontario focused on the provincial election this past week. Residents in Fort Frances are watching water levels rise on Rainy Lake and the Upper Rainy River. The flooding has already surpassed levels seen in 2014 and are expected to break the all-time record set back in 1950. Adam Riley reports.
It's definitely uncharted territory. We've never been here before.
Those words are a repeating theme in Fort Frances as the community continues to battle rising floodwaters. Last week, crews began shoring up sandbag defenses in some of the low-lying areas along Front Street in an effort to protect infrastructure and homes. And while those defenses were overrun, they delayed waters long enough to build a secondary line, which is so far held. Mayor June Call, who has been helping fill sandbags for the last week, remains defiant against the rising waters, but acknowledges how unpredictable the situation is.
You just wait and see what's coming next, right? You can't really plan at this point in time. You just kind of second guess yourself. We know that the water is going to continue coming for some time. We know it's supposed to get higher here as the days go on. So we just keep putting sandbags by any place that we feel is necessary to secure the land and build on top of that if we have to.
Fire crews from the MNRF and volunteers continue to fill sandbags, this time at the former Shevlin Woodyard, a mere 500 meters from the front lines. As well, the town has pulled the Hallett tugboat completely out of the water to prevent it from floating downstream towards the dam. Operations and Facilities Manager Travis Robb says as of Tuesday, water levels were within 3 inches of the record 339.23 meters set in 1950, and by Thursday or Friday of this week, will end up breaking the 72-year record. As a result of changes made to the area since all of the previous floods, it's near impossible to tell how the area will be affected.
We're really in uncharted territory. We don't really know how the upper river level is going to respond, how our infrastructure is going to respond, which areas are going to be the most affected or the least affected. So we're really kind of just trying to monitor everything and respond where we think we need to be to stay ahead.
3 areas of concern include the Frog Creek area, the Ildewil Drive area, and the aforementioned Front Street, which has been closed to heavy truck traffic. Also monitoring the situation are officials with the La Vérendrye Hospital, which is located less than 300 meters from the flooding. While the main hospital remains relatively safe as it sits a further 5 feet above the current water level, there are some other properties the hospital owns that are at risk.
We have a contingency group that is meeting on a regular basis that we're watching as the water comes up, and we're making sure that we're going to have enough assets in place or plans in place to direct our residents and all our staff out of the facility if need be.
Adam Riley, TBT News.
Floodwaters also continue to be untenable in Kenora, where more evacuations have been announced, and it's beginning to have a bigger impact on both full-time and seasonal residents.
This is absolutely unbelievable. I moved here in 1954, and I remember down where we lived seeing the water lines from the 1950 flood, and I couldn't believe the water had been that high.
Water levels have been steadily creeping up for weeks due to the immense amount of water that has traveled into Lake of the Woods that is simultaneously draining at a far slower rate. The one stretch of beaches on Coney Island have been reduced to strips, with the docks on either underwater or being pummeled by the waves, forcing the city to close them. Several waterfront properties are also submerged, including docks used by charter air services, which have had to come up with different ways to get customers to their aircraft. Deputy Mayor Mort Goss says he doesn't want to use the term biblical proportions, but is getting close. He says the city is unsure of the number of people who have been forced to evacuate in various areas of the city and is asking residents to stay off of closed roads.
Some people have managed to get back into their properties. Some people are actually traveling on roads that we wish they wouldn't be traveling on because they're making things worse. We're finding some of the road beds are just in frost out conditions. The city is now just extended, as of today, expanded the half loading. I can't believe we've still got half loading in June. But the basis for these roads are so soft that any major traffic is just starting to punch holes into it.
Goss is hopeful emergency funding will be made available to the city when it comes time to begin repairs, and also wants the province to acknowledge that it's not just one community facing hardships as a result of the flooding. Well, still lots to come on Northwest Newsweek as Council in Fort Frances gives the okay to rezone a property for a potential solar and crypto farm. Fort Frances Council is looking to get a better look at a proposed development of one of the former mill properties that could see the community become the first commercial hub for cryptocurrency in the region. The town is also looking to add some protections for itself should legal issues arise. Adam Riley has those details.
Council in Fort Frances is proceeding with a plan to develop various assets from the former Resolute Mill properties. The proponent hopes to have what was once a lagoon that is currently zoned for industrial waste disposal to be rezoned to allow them to build a 150 megawatt solar farm and facility to mine for cryptocurrency. However, there are some concerns and doubts from some members of council over the proposed benefits of the project.
I remain unconvinced of no significant long-term economic stimulus that a crypto mining operation would bring to Fort Frances.
Has very few jobs available to our people who live here, and I just don't. I think it's just a huge energy suck in the planet.
I share Councillor Burnett's concern too with the energy consumption, how that just flies in the face of what we're trying to do as a community to fight climate change.
But despite those concerns, Council voted 5-1 in favor of proceeding to allow the proponent to move forward with a study on noise mitigation. Mayor June Call says they want to do what is best for their residents while also learning more about the project.
Whether you're hearing positive or negative, I want to know what the Ministry of the Environment has to say about the noise mitigation, for one thing, and the amount of electricity that's going to be used. We are certainly looking for more industry, more business in Fort Frances, but we also have to be cognizant of the people who live here. They're our priority. Our residents are our priority. We are all for a solar farm. There's no problem that way.
Town staff have now been tasked with gathering both noise pollution and environmental impacts for the site. We'll bring that information back to Council at a later date. Council also discussed a new indemnification bylaw, which essentially provides financial assistance to staff or members of Council facing legal fees. Last year, a series of complaints that required legal services cost the town more than $40,000 of a budgeted $5,000.
If we have anybody coming at us with any kind of a complaint about anything or any kind of a legal complaint, that we're going to have to worry about having to hire lawyers or whatever for. It's a prudent thing to do to make sure that we do have that ability to have legal fees paid for if necessary.
Call notes, however, should the complaint be valid, the individual would have to reimburse the town. The bylaw is expected to be brought back to Council later this year. Adam Riley, TBT News.
Earlier this year, Agritech North began its operations in Dryden with a push to bring affordable, locally sourced fruits, vegetables, and herbs to the region, especially for those in remote northern communities, with the company also spreading its roots into education. The facility grows its produce in vertical stalls to fully utilize the space and grow the equivalent of 5 acres of crops year-round. The equipment manufactured by a company called Zip Grow includes a lighting component to help the plants grow. A smaller unit has also been acquired by Agritech, which will be used in partnership with the Keewatin Patricia District School Board to allow students to learn about both the technology and modern agriculture techniques. However, CEO Benjamin Fegan says that initiative is just the tip of the iceberg.
We're also doing workshops and asynchronous learning, I guess you could call it. That's outside of a curriculum. We're working with Kenora Jail on a recreation program. We're also bringing people in that can train on the systems that we have here, work for us for a time, learn how to grow year-round, and potentially bring that back to a remote or rural community that they're from as well, to start their own local production and take control of their food security.
Despite the flooding situation in Kenora that we touched on earlier in the show, the city's mayor is upbeat for what the summer of 2022 has in store for his community. The May long weekend marked the beginning of tourism season after a very rough 2 years due to the pandemic. Dan Raynard says he's looking forward to seeing the population of the community swell, while events like the Main Street Party, Bass Tournament, and Kenora's summer staple Harbor Fest are all expected to make their return. On top of that, housing products and other economic opportunities are beginning to take root, which has Raynard feeling very excited for what the future has to offer.
There's a lot of positive momentum within the community. It seems like, though, the last year and a half, two and a half years, it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. So we'll continue to move forward, and Yeah, we're not going to get dissuaded from our long-term plans, but things change on a daily basis, as we've seen.
During the peak summer months, Kenora's population can almost double with visitors coming in from around the world. Lakehead University has launched its Anishinaabe Kandassawan Institute, which is a new Indigenous research branch at the university. The institute seeks to expand and support Indigenous governed and driven research, as well as support community building and mobilization between Indigenous peoples. It was founded on the premise that if research is done right, it can play an important role in advancing the visions and needs of Indigenous peoples and their lands. The institute has already started their work and is hosting a 2-day virtual conference, bringing together people within the region to discuss Indigenous self-determination and data and governance. AKI Director Lana Ray says the institute allows Indigenous peoples to tell their own stories.
There's been a history of research that has been to the detriment of Indigenous peoples and territories, and we often think about that in a historical way, but much of that is still ongoing. So this is really about us being able to reclaim our roles as storytellers within our own communities, reclaiming those responsibilities.
And that's all we have for this week's edition of Northwest Newsweek. We'll be back next week.